Welcome to another edition of the Gruber Show, Gruber Morning Show. Sorry, left that out. Sponsored by the Gruber Companies.
Is Rivian going to be profitable in 2024?
Model Y losing its $7,500 tax credit.
The Cybertruck will be both a truck and a boat.
And a boat. And then 4 more join the NACS standard. Find out who. I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Mark Schaffner.
These and other stories on the Gruber Morning Show. First of all, we want to thank everyone for joining us as always. Hope that you had a wonderful holiday, lots of family time. We had, for 3 solid days, it was nothing but food, family, and good times and games and, all kinds of great stuff. How about you?
Oh, we had a great time with the family. For me, it's all about the 2 grandkids, and went over to my son's house. Had a wonderful time. Got to see their new puppy. The granddaughter's got a puppy for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
She's 2 years old now, or so?
Yeah, she's 2.5, and her little sister is just 6 months old.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. Yep, wonderful time. But I do have to admit, glad to be back. Glad to be joining everyone and hitting this. Jesse was up in Durango, was it?
Yeah, I was up in southern Colorado. It was nice. It was when I went out hunting yesterday on Christmas morning. It was 12 degrees.
12 degrees. Okay.
Yeah, actually, when I landed, I was surprised. There wasn't any snow or anything, but it was still very cold.
What were you hunting for?
Elk.
Elk. Oh, no kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go out there on our reservation. My family's part of the Southern Ute Indian tribe there in southern Colorado, and we go out there and we get tags. Tribal members get tags every year, so we were out there looking for a cow elk. We did not find one this time, but they got another couple weeks out there still.
I've had elk before. It's delicious. Very tender, at least the one that I had. Good meat. Yeah.
Oh, it's very, very much. I've had elk and moose and venison and all good stuff.
Well, again, thanks for joining us. Any questions? Let us know where you're coming in from. Instagram is going to see a green screen. We're still working on getting the positioning so that you're not looking at the center between us at times. We're going to be switching to each of us individually, but we think that problem will be solved here fairly soon. It has to do with the aspect ratio. Yeah. One is designed for cell phone, the other one is for wide, type presentation. So it will get resolved. Instagram, Alphas Warna says, hello, brothers. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
TikTok, Turan.harakit.partisi says hi. Thanks again for joining us. And I've got a number of topics today. The first one that we wanted to lead with, we've got a picture, if we can throw that up here, Jesse. It's NIO. And apparently NIO is back in the news. They say that the NIO Power Charger 4.0 and Power Swap Station 4.0 are officially now unveiled. Deployment starts April 1st, 2024. In 2024, 1,000 power swap stations and 20,000 chargers will be added to the network. The upgraded rollout of the power network in 2024 will further improve the recharging experience. And you had some definite views on that.
Oh, I definitely do. I look at this and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why do we ever need to do something like this? And I doing a little bit of background checking on this. First, most of these 1,000 are going to be going into China. That's where NIO's customer installed base is almost completely at. And then I thought, okay, well, what differences are there between China and the United States? We've touched on this in the past, that there's some differences in how they view ownership. And so my handy chat GPT AI assistant here, talks about that. And from a cultural perspective, battery swapping does make more sense for China than here in the U.S. The Chinese culture has a strong and long history of what's called collectivism. Mm-hmm. That means there's the concept of individual ownership that we take pride of here in the United States. We own our land, we own our house, we own our car, it's ours, nobody can do anything with it, type of thing. Doesn't even exist in China. There is no private land ownership. There hasn't been such a thing as private land ownership in China for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. The idea of capitalism and markets and stuff like that is only about a 30 to 40-year-old idea in China. And so the entire concept of personal ownership is quite different from us, where we see this risk of, wow, if I change batteries, I'm going to potentially swap my good battery that I've taken care of for some sort of bad battery that's not going to work. In China, they might not even think of it as their battery in the first place.
Right.
It's still NIO's battery, even though it's their car. And so if they get a bad battery, fine, go back tomorrow and go get another battery. It'll be better. And NIO, who owns the batteries, is how they might think of it, would simply say, you know what, somebody over at NIO is going to take care of that problem. All we care about is we have a car, it's drivable, it has a good battery, and if something ever happens, we just take it back and go get another battery.
Right. So things we take for granted here simply aren't the case in other countries or some other countries.
Exactly.
Fascinating. Look like we've got some more people chiming in. Niels is joining us from Denmark. He says, did you get the almond? You know, we had lots of food, but that was a very nice tradition that he acquainted me with in Denmark, finding an almond, and the kids love that sort of thing. So,
oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. LinkedIn, Steve Wormington from Southlake, Texas is chiming in.
Good morning, Stephen. And then from YouTube, Stephen Rose says, good morning from San Juan Capistrano, California. Looking forward to another year of enjoying your informative podcasts. Thank you, Stephen.
That's a beautiful part of the world, Stephen, that you're from. YouTube, again, Niels did it again. Swapping would also prevent the sad faces on battery replacement day. Yeah.
Well, it definitely would. You know, that's, yeah, you can't argue the fact. Somebody over here with a Tesla that gets notice that they're going to have to pay $17,000 for a new battery, or $22,000 or $12,000 for a rebuild, that would never happen.
Right.
And so that would be a nice thing.
YouTube, Robert Christensen says, hello from Norway. You had a great reply last time I talked to you about the ACP system in my monotracer. It's being converted to digital electronics. But what is the difference, analog versus digital? Well, reliability definitely comes into play. And, you know, Tesla, with the Roadster, for example, when they were first deciding that the Roadster would be a real thing, Martin Eberhard, Mark Tarpening, right? Looking for a auto manufacturer that would sell them empty sports car gliders, as they call them, that they could electrify. They initially used the ACP drivetrain,
right?
Which stands for AC Propulsion System, and it's not AC as in AC/DC. It's Al Caccione, his his initials. But it was mostly analog technology. The one that we bought, when we opened up what was the equivalent of a power electronics module, a case in the back that was full of circuit boards and chips. It was a lot of TTL type logic. There was some transistor logic in there. It was definitely old school TTL type electronics, from the last century.
Okay.
And they tried to use that in the Tesla Roadster and found it to just be unreliable for a number of reasons. I would imagine even temperature extremes would affect the reliability of that analog technology.
I would think that the analog technology would end up generating a lot more heat and being less efficient than the direct current technology as well.
Yeah, most certainly. So fortunately, Tesla subcontracted out the design of a digital power electronics module, or PEM, to Chroma in Taiwan, who was well-versed and skilled in developing product like this, being in the test equipment business, basically. And they're the ones that actually designed and created the current Tesla Roadster power electronics module. And reliability soared from there. Looks like Niels is saying, plus easy access to newer battery technologies.
That is another reason for a power swap station. You know what? The main argument against a power swap station is simply the complexity that you're adding to the whole battery exchange process. The idea now, the NIO announcement, when they talk about their chargers, there's 640 kilowatt chargers that they're trying to put out there too. So if there's a line of 4 or 5 or 6 cars, because it's going to take some time to put your car, bring it up, unload the battery, load the new battery in, and then drive off with it. If you don't want to wait in line, you just go park at one of the chargers at 640 kilowatts. You may be able to get your car charged completely in about 10 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm. You know, that seems like a business opportunity for those of you that are business-minded out there. The threat and the risk of having a $20,000 Tesla battery go defective is definitely weighs on people's minds.
Yes.
It's of great concern. If a company came along that decided to assume all that risk and simply allow people to lease their batteries on the cars that they own, not the entire car, but just the battery, that way you'd never again have a battery concern, because the instant it begins to go flaky, act strange, fails, you simply go and get another battery from this company.
It's an intriguing business prospect, and I'll bet the numbers could be worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. YouTube, Jim Stack. Welcome, Jim. Local EV godfather here, actually. He says the Model Y loses partial tax credit. Won't be the 8640 U.S.-made battery won't it still allow for full tax credit? Actually, one of our other, in fact, the next item here is that the tax credit is going away for the Model 3 and the $7,500 tax credit based on the Inflation Reduction Act rules. Did you look into that a bit further?
I have looked into that just a little bit further. The overall idea is that the tax credit change on the Inflation Reduction Act is a result of a mixture of the amount of raw materials that need to be put into the car from either the U.S. or from trade-friendly countries. In other words, countries where we have a free trade agreement, not China, and the components as well. So there are two parts to the tax credit, these raw materials and these components. In 2023, 40% of raw materials needed to be sourced either from the U.S. or from countries friendly to the U.S., and 50% of automotive components needed to be that. In 2024, those rise by 10% to 50 and 60%, respectively. While Tesla is getting many of their batteries for their Model 3 models, especially the long-range models, and some of their Model Y models from China, that's going, they meet what they met in 2023, they do not meet in 2024. To answer Jim's question specifically, yes, Model Y is going to lose some of the Model Ys, not all of them, but it's the long-range ones that use the larger 4680 batteries are going to lose the partial tax credit because the percentage of components that need to be sourced from the U.S. or friendly countries is not going to fall up to that 60% range. The 8640 U.S.-made batteries, I think you might mean the 4680s, U.S.-made batteries are being largely reserved and put into Cybertrucks. So they could be going into the Model Ys, and as production increases on those batteries, it's likely that the Model Y will gain more of those batteries and then be able to be eligible for the credit again.
Interesting. And of course, the other thing that this article points out is that with the tax credit, the Model 3's effective price was just under $35,000, and that price point has been the threshold for shoppers on the fence about EVs due to their high sticker prices.
Yeah, so I know the speculation is Tesla might come out at the beginning of the year and say, okay, we're going to do another price cut on our Model 3s.
Right.
And that's got some people nervous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys, the other thing too about this was that the at the first of the year, you're supposed to be able to use your tax credit right there at the dealers for other EVs too. So we'll see how this is going to affect other EVs. But this is not just for Tesla. This is for anybody that's getting their materials from China or other, like you said, Mark, untrade-friendly places. So we'll see. This is going to be an industry-wide impact we're going to see.
It is, and to expand on Jesse's note, one of the other large-selling vehicles that is going to be impacted is the Ford Mach-E Mustang.
Okay.
It's going to be losing half of the tax credit value as well, because I don't know if it's on the raw material side or the parts side. I suspect it's on the parts side that they're not going to meet the percentage standards for 2024.
Interesting. Okay. TikTok, Turan Harakit.Partisi says, hi, mister, I'm writing from Turkey without using hybrid electric cars. So it looks like Turkey doesn't have many.
Thank you for joining us today, and good evening to you. On TikTok, Van Goat says, Merry Christmas, Gruber team. Merry Christmas, Van Goat.
To you as well and your family. TikTok, Moon Mochi, did you see a near future for inductive charging? You know, that topic comes up often as we do our podcasts here.
Yes.
And there is a lot of development that's going on right now. There are roads that are getting the inductive coupling embedded in the roads. We're always speculating that this may bring back the notion of toll roads, which I was glad to see decline and go away. But,
Right.
you know, Europe is full of those. I mean, in France, it was nothing but toll roads, one right after the other. And you go a few, 100 kilometers, and then you have to pay again and again and again. But it is definitely a technology that's going to take us away from the notion of having to plug something in to charge, which the people that predict the future saying will be a silly notion by the time that, inductive charging and even solar charging takes over.
I think you're right, Pete, that at some point, a combination of inductive and solar charging is going to end up taking over for what charging needs to be done for cars. And frankly, I think it's going to revolutionize the way that EVs work.
Yeah.
Because why do you need a 100 kilowatt battery if you're able to get a charge on your car every 50 miles, or if you're able to charge from the sun as you drive?
And it will become similar to what happened to power tools. People generally don't expect cords on power tools anymore.
Yes, that's true.
Except the big ones, of course. YouTube, Stephen Rose, he says, I'm very excited about the 48-volt system on the Cybertruck. Only Tesla has the forward-looking ability to make such a change in the automotive mainstream. The big problem with this is the scale of economies have not yet been reached for 48-volt devices. And so any manufacturer that's jumping into this is definitely creating some risk for themselves. It's going to increase some costs. Initially the 48-volt headlights, for example, are going to be more expensive because they're not going to be making these by the hundreds of thousands or millions every year. And then, of course, all the other devices, audio-type devices, door locks, anything that runs on 12 volts in a car is now going to have to be either modified or reproduced.
Well, and even if you have 1 million cars a year being produced at 48 volt, the market is not 1 million cars.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what's being added to the automotive market every year. The market is the tens or hundreds of millions of cars that drive on the road on a yearly basis.
Right.
That are anywhere from 2 to as much as 40 or 50 years old.
Now, the cost savings, of course, somewhat negligible. Granted, the gauge of wire will now be smaller because in the world of electricity, as you raise voltage, your current goes down proportionately. But again, I think it's a healthy step. A lot of people don't remember this, but in the last century, working on really old cars, 2030s, 40s, oftentimes you had 6-volt systems in those cars.
Right.
And the size of the wire to go to your starter motor was massive compared to the 12-volt systems.
That's right. YouTube, Niels comes back again and says, EVs are becoming more difficult to repair. Fine cars must be scrapped because of failing batteries. Tesla's structural battery helps production, but I would prefer a heavier but repairable one.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I understand your take, Niels, and that's one of the concerns. We haven't seen much about these structural batteries yet. They're still under warranty. Are they going to be repairable in the future? And if not, that's a concern for real.
TikTok, Mumuchi is saying, how do you compare Ford Lightning's truck with the Cybertruck, in your opinion? We have, at Gruber Motor Company, we had a Cybertruck show up. It was one of the ones that was used during promotion before the actual launch, the end of November. And it came in the middle of the night, so we weren't there to actually be able to, take pictures and examine and carefully analyze. We probably won't see one of those until, first of all, they come to Phoenix in a big way. By the way,
Right.
my one of my daughter-in-laws actually saw a carrier going east on the I-10 with about 4 or 5 Cybertrucks on it, and they took a video. It's on our TikTok channel, actually. Those of you that are interested.
Okay.
We don't know where they were going, and of course, we couldn't talk to them, or they couldn't because they were on the freeway, but. So we're looking forward to doing some of those types of comparisons, but can't weigh in yet.
Yeah, it's hard. Just we don't know enough about the Cybertruck yet.
Mm-hmm.
Ramon Hurt on YouTube says they should get rid of the tax rebates. Tesla's getting the lion's share. The OEMs have obviously gave up, and they're scaling back their EVs and switching to hybrids.
Oh, that's not a direction that we support. Also, Ramon says hybrid should not get a dime of taxpayers' money.
I agree with you, Ramon, on that one. Well, we were talking in our last podcast, if you remember, about how the hybrids have taken on a very large percentage of the market, almost as large as the EV percentage. And both of them are taking from the ICE vehicle market share. But while I can understand the logic of people who are just afraid to make the jump into EV, I don't agree with it.
Yeah. Turan Harki Partisi says from Turkey, I made a hybrid charging engine in an electric car without ever using it. I want to offer the charging motor to car companies. It sounds like we have an inventor here.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Very, very, yes. And then Jimmy Stack says, New York State toll roads. Oh, you got that right. The New York State Thruway, which crosses the entire state. They have the standard freeways as well, which are not toll-free. But it is toll road all the way. And, I have to chime in here. I was in the two-way radio business. And one of the things that the New York State Thruway had, which was revolutionary at the time, we're talking about the 1970s, was a repeater system for their communications. So every once in a while, every 100 miles or so, probably less than that, 50 miles, there was a base station that had a repeater station, which means that it receives a signal and then rebroadcasts it.
Okay.
And this network actually stretched the entire 400 to 500 miles of New York State thruway. And that allowed communication, across the entire length of that freeway.
Sure.
It was a great way to do it. It was at that time it was a technological wonder, and it set the stage for many other applications like this. Niels is saying, the whole EV thing makes too little difference. We need doubling gas prices, forced car sharing, e-bikes, homework, putting workplaces where people live, and insulating buildings. Some radical changes there.
There would definitely be some big radical changes for that. I think the individualism that we have here in the United States is one of the things that has been working against us in the transition to EVs.
Mm-hmm.
People like being able to own and then fix what they own.
Mm-hmm.
And with electric vehicles, it is a computer on wheels more than any other vehicle has been. And that's a real problem for a lot of the do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah, good point. Neil says, how many EV buyers replace their gas car versus getting another car? Good point. You find oftentimes people keep their old fossil fuel burners just for keepsake. Sometimes they get donated, sold, but oftentimes you find both.
Yeah.
TikTok, Moon Muchi says, do you think Tesla will license their software to other car manufacturers in the near future? If I had to guess or weigh in on this, I would say absolutely, because Tesla, the culture there is not one of myopic protectionism like most companies attempt to keep their IP, proprietary. They create lots of patents and then they protect those, and they may license them cautiously, but they certainly don't like supporting competition. Whereas Tesla seems to do just the opposite. And every once in a while, it's a head shaker. What do you mean they just open sourced all of the Tesla Roadster software, all of their IP? What do you mean that all of their Cybertruck vendors are now open source? So you can see where they're getting their parts from and their products.
Right.
So, yes, I do think that I strongly believe that Tesla will license their software to other car manufacturers. And the term license implies that they'll get revenue. There's some revenue sharing there, which makes perfect sense for both parties.
And with Tesla's previous announcements that they would forego enforcement of the patents that they had as long as they had the ability to share knowledge with other companies, it might be that a lot of that's already in place, and it's simply the other parties, the other car organizations that are declining to want to share their own intellectual property and therefore not taking Tesla up on their offer.
That's the other irony there, is that it doesn't seem to be reciprocal. Tesla is doing all the giving in this case.
Right.
Instagram, Yoganath.777. Is it possible to join your organization? We do have openings at Gruber Motor Company. We typically look for local people. It's very difficult to transplant someone from another part of the country or another part of the world for that matter. But anyone interested, if you'd like to join a growing progressive EV type service organization with lots of innovation and a lot of OJT, on-the-job training and learning, ev@gruber.com is where you'd want to send your resume.
Ramon Hurd on YouTube says, I hear a lot of complaining about repairability of EVs, but then I see plenty of self-taught YouTubers doing just fine. Rich Rebuilds and Boosted Boys come to mind. Ramon, a lot of people have what I would like to call a confirmation bias. They have an end result in mind. And in this case, the end result is EVs are not repairable. And so then they go out and they look for evidence, and anything that they find that contradicts their theory, they discard. Anything that supports their theory, they keep. And they use what supports their theory to try to confirm their theory.
Absolutely. And, people like Rich, for example, he was definitely a pioneer and still is in many ways. Generally, it takes people that have some engineering background, that understand the technology. One of the reasons that we're successful is because we came from the critical power world, and we applied the same fundamental principles, working on equipment that the OEMs would not support any kind of independent maintenance activity, in other words, competition. We had learned to reverse engineer and develop our own schematics and documentation. It generally requires companies that have those kind of skills or make a heavy investment in those types of activities, such as reverse engineering, to develop their own documentation and then become successful. But having said all that, there are a lot of backyard mechanics as well that are doing great things in this. And it also speaks to the fact that the technology is not quite as complex as internal combustion engine, where you have numerous moving parts and lots of specialized tooling. Anybody that is capable of repairing their own PC and their own computers at home and has some interest in electronics generally will do fairly well with EVs.
I agree with you there. At some point you've got your garage hobbyist, grease monkey, you might call him, who has bought engine lifts so they can buy crate engines, replace them, and they do so in their own private garage. I could see having car lifts and battery lifts instead. I could see that happening in the future.
Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
Just so you know, we do have a few more articles to get through. This is a shorter show, so if you want to dive into some of those.
Okay. Stephen Rose asked a quick question. Did I order a Cybertruck? You know, it's that fear of missing out thing. The horses are already out of the barn. I haven't. And my hope is that our special relationship with Tesla might get us to the front of the line somehow. But that's wishful thinking. What would we do with a Cybertruck, guys, other than just... All right.
Shoot it.
We would conquer the world. Yeah, we could shoot it with shotguns, arrows. We could take it off of sweet jumps. Yeah.
Well, when I get mine and I bring it by, we're doing none of that.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
Okay. All right. Another article talking about Rivian now. In relation to the ongoing price wars, it turns out that the price wars regarding Rivian. Let me get back to another portion of this article here, where we were talking about the tax credits and would it affect Rivian? They say, but the outcome would not be especially problematic for Rivian, which has been building momentum. The good news is that Rivian is one of the few EV manufacturers that's been able to avoid joining the price wars so far, for the same reasons should remain unimpacted if Tesla again slashes prices. Now, the main reason they say that Rivian has been able to avoid participating in the price wars is that EVs don't directly compete. Their EVs don't compete directly in the segments where Tesla has been slashing prices. Consumers who are willing to pay a starting price of roughly $78,000 for a Rivian R1T truck or R1S SUV won't be impacted by the fluctuation of smaller sedans. Now, they say if the same price cut development were to happen with Tesla's newly launched Cybertruck, which does more directly compete with Rivian's vehicles, it could have a far different and more concerning impact on Rivian's momentum.
I think that Rivian has been masterful in the way that they've been able to first avoid getting into the price wars, and second, expand and continue to expand into markets that other EV makers are not into as much yet, such as the delivery vans. So the truck/large SUV market is not the same at all as the sedan or even the crossover market, like the Model Y is more of a crossover SUV. I think it's a point well taken. And the projection that Rivian is making is that they're going to have a gross profit by the end of 2024 as a result of this.
Exactly. They say that Rivian has momentum going into 2024. It just launched a leasing program to stoke demand. It's inked a deal to supply AT&T with electric delivery vans. And these are vehicles that previously they were selling exclusively to Amazon.
Yeah.
And then, of course, accelerated its production and deliveries. It has also improved its gross profit per unit. And like you said, it's on track to be potentially profitable next year.
Yeah, now I realize gross profit positive will not necessarily mean that it has net income, but that is a huge step in the right direction. And Rivian seems to have solidified its spot at the top of the second tier of EV makers that have come out after Tesla in terms of its chances to become profitable in the future. I think it's got a very exciting future.
Some comments. Van Goatwagon says it is a perfect Tesla for Mark and me to fit in a Cybertruck.
You bet, Van Goat.
Niels is saying, on a Cybertruck, if one wheel goes up, is the opposing wheel pushed down to get more grip, as they would if they were on the same stiff axle? Cybertruck also seems to be a bit long for good off-roading. A Model T might win.
It does seem to be a little bit longer of a vehicle. I don't know the answer to
I think
Niels'
they matched
question,
it up
though.
against a Tacoma, and I don't think the wheelbase was that much different. Maybe a little bit longer, But I mean, you got to remember, this is like in between a pre-runner and like an F-150, you know, and also the steering capabilities and the clearance makes it a little bit easier to off-road with.
Yes.
In addition to that, when I saw it at Peterson, and albeit this was an early model, it looked smaller than Tacoma to me.
Really?
It looked
Okay.
maybe the same length, if not shorter. I might be misremembering, but it surprised me at how small it was.
I was going to bring a picture, actually. It's someone up on their roof shooting down into their driveway. There was a Cybertruck with a Model Y, and the Model Y was substantially smaller than the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck looked very long, elongated. Interesting points. Highlander is joining us from YouTube. He says, inductive charging. It's stoplights and school zones with the money going into the local city or township. So that would be the revenue path then for inductive charging.
It's definitely an idea. Stephen Rose on YouTube says, if Tesla brings down the price on the Model 3 anymore, there will be no need for a $25,000 Tesla.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And then on YouTube, Highlander again says to Steve, yes, the Model 2, smaller, lighter, under $20,000 and a lot fewer batteries.
Cool.
That would be quite a game changer for people.
So, you keep hearing about this, but it turns out that Elon Musk confirmed that Tesla plans to offer a mod package that is going to turn the Cybertruck into a boat, at least to traverse 100 meters of water. Musk made the claim before about how Tesla vehicles could float and briefly serve as a boat. And if you remember, there were people that were doing this with the Model S.
Yeah.
Fording roads that the ICE vehicles were concerned about traversing because they seemed too deep. You get water in a carburetor and you're sucking water into your fossil fuel engine, and you're in a world of hurt at that point.
Yeah, you lose an engine quick that way.
Because water doesn't compress like air.
No, it does not.
They say they have never been taken too seriously, as Tesla warranty says something different about taking the vehicle into water. So they're going to have to rewrite their warranty, it sounds like. There we go. We've got a picture of that. And there's another picture as well, guys. Now, this one blew me away. I mean, this is out in the open water here. It's a Cybertruck Boat-2. Check that out. Now, for the rich guys, you could have your yacht and your land transportation all at the same time. Just simply pull the pontoon boat up on the shore and, traverse, and then...
It's an interesting concept.
So they say the CEO, Elon, also doubled down on the claim that the Cybertruck, for which it makes more sense since it's supposed to be an off-road vehicle. Last year, Musk claimed that the Tesla Cybertruck would be waterproof enough to serve as a boat and cross rivers. He also added that the goal is for a Cybertruck to be able to cross the waters between SpaceX's Starbase and South Padre Island in Texas, which is about 360 meters or 1,100 feet. That's a lot more than the 300 feet that they were talking about earlier.
Most definitely.
Since Tesla started deliveries of the Cybertruck last month, they learned that the Cybertruck's off-road mode includes a wade mode that pressurizes the battery pack to seal it. Now, from our viewpoint, being in a service business, this makes a lot more sense because, no seals are perfect, and it concerns me that water, especially salt water, could migrate into a EV battery pack. The commenting on a statement made by Lars Moravi, who's the VP of Engineering at Tesla, about how Cybertruck owners connect an electric outboard motor to the back of the pickup truck to turn it into a boat, Elon added that Tesla plans to sell a package that will turn the Cybertruck into a boat, so you don't have to fabricate your own. And
Sure. Well, I just think this is a novelty. I think the comments we're getting up here as well. It would cause a lot. Ramon Hurt says Cyberboat sounds like a big liability. As an investor, I don't like this. Or Stephen Rose, who says, I wish Elon would stop coming up with these crazy ideas and start producing the next gen roadster. Well, that's kind of my thought too. That this gets a lot of press. I do like the idea of the pressurized battery cabinet. That's a cool thing. That's going to be very functional, very easy to implement. And when you think about it, if you're going to take the Cybertruck off-roading, you're going to get to the point where you're going to need to cross creeks, streams, or small rivers. You're going to be putting water in that area of where the battery would sit. Pressurizing the battery makes total sense. But turning a $60,000 vehicle into a boat when you could go and tow a boat that you would buy that would be really nice for maybe $40,000, I don't know.
Compelling arguments, Mark. Makes sense. The other thing I think about is if you're fording a river or stream or whatever, you can't see what's going on down below. Jagged rocks, for example, ripping out your understructure, Yeah, I'm kind of with Stephen Rose on this one. I wish Elon would stop coming up with crazy ideas, and let's go a bit more mainstream here. I'm not sure that the Cybertruck, although it is very versatile, there's no doubt about that, and it is revolutionary in design, I think we've already met all of those objectives. I'm not sure that we have to go any further with it.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
See, and I see this as a gateway for Gruber Motor to get into the marine industry. So Gruber Motor Company and Marine Industry. That's the new title.
That means we'd have to open up a shop here on Lake Pleasant and Lake Saguaro. We have a lot of lakes in Arizona, and at one point when I first moved here, I was shocked to find out that the per capita boat ownership in Arizona was the highest in the country. You would think those would be the coastal areas, the places where lakes, the Great Lakes area, for example. But yeah, all right. Looks like we're moving along here.
We have one from Niels on YouTube. He says, there is a YouTube rumor that Ford may revive the Ranchero model as a $20,000 truck and have options for either gas, diesel, or electric. Is there anything to that? I've not heard anything. How about you, Pete?
I don't know, but with the bans on continuing to manufacture internal combustion engine vehicles, I would say that might just be rumor at this point.
It might be. Well, that'll be something that maybe we can have Cass or Aaron check on, or Richard, in the background while we're going through this.
And then, of course, Van Goldwagen says the Tesla boat-truck will obviously have a flamethrower. Yeah, and possibly even thrusters. We might as well go all the way here. YouTube, Ramon Hurd, I'm patiently waiting for my Cybertruck. I want the stock price as high as possible when that time comes. Good point.
There you go. Good point.
Big Bill. Instagram, FNE Mobile. He says, Merry Christmas to all Tesla fans around the world with a bunch of Christmas trees. Likewise.
Thank you.
And we said earlier, we hope that you all had a wonderful time with your families, and it was an enjoyable holidays for you. So the next standard, some more dominoes are falling, apparently.
Yeah.
The latest one, Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, Scout Motors announced, and this was last week, the planned implementation of the NACS standard for future vehicles in North America starting in 2025. They say the announcement shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone following the industry because nearly every other manufacturer, Stellantis is now the only holdout, has already committed to using the connector that Tesla developed and uses on all of its cars since 2012. The Volkswagen Group really had no choice but to make the switch, or it would have been at an enormous competitive disadvantage. They say the interesting thing is that the press release states that Volkswagen, Porsche, and Audi are exploring adapter solutions for existing vehicles to access the Tesla supercharger network starting in 2025. What that means, they say, is unlike most other companies that have already committed to NACS, existing Volkswagen Group vehicles won't have supercharger access in 2024 with an adapter.
That's interesting, and this group of four brands. These are the brands that are owned by the Volkswagen Group. So it's the one corporate entity finally caving in, and man, this had to sting a little bit for them because in 2015 they have this big fine that comes in because of the diesel motors that were rigged to get to get around the emission standards. And so they had to spend billions of dollars, and they've built out one of the largest charging networks in the U.S. With Electrify America. Now their cars going forward are going to be designed to run on a competitor's network instead.
Right. Yep. All right. Walmart has entered into an agreement with Canoo to purchase thousands of vans from the electric vehicle startup. The retail giant, they say in this article on Tuesday, said last week it will purchase 4,500 examples of Canoo's lifestyle delivery vehicle, LDV, that it was open to purchasing more should the need arise. You know, my son works for Walmart, and he told me months ago when they first started to get some of these that the people there didn't know how to charge them, and they were typically not charged when they went to use them. I asked him yesterday, I said, has that improved? I told him about this article.
Yeah.
He says, yeah, they're finally on board. They realize that after you come back, you need to plug this thing in and get it fully charged again, you know, rather than wait until when you need it and then decide, oh my God, you know, we need to get a charge. They say that the vehicles will be used for delivery of online orders, kind of like Amazon now, if you think about it. The move is part of Walmart's goal to eliminate emissions from its operations by 2040. Canoo presented the LDV in 2019 and has since revealed a larger van and pickup truck. This LDV is on track to start production in late 2022 and will be delivered to the first customers, including Walmart, in 2023. So that portion's old because that's already past history.
Yeah, I went ahead and took a look to see how many deliveries had been made in 2023 from Canoo to Walmart, and could not find anything even on Canoo's site that said that they had made a significant number of deliveries. But that doesn't mean that Canoo is not working on these and ramping up production and making these. According to Canoo's 2023 Q3 press release for their investors, they are ramping up operations. They are taking their LDVs through the first round of customer testing, and they're working mostly with the state of Oklahoma because Oklahoma has also ordered 1,000 of these LDVs from Canoo, and Canoo's doing its manufacturing in Oklahoma. So the proximity makes a lot of sense for them. They do plan on being up and running with production and have the capacity to produce as many as 20,000 vehicles a year by the end of 2024. Now, it doesn't mean that they will be producing that many, but at least they'll have that capacity available to them.
You know, looking at this LDV, and I don't have a picture of it here, but it looks like a great candidate for a small camper conversion or food truck conversion.
Oh, I think so as well.
Very cool. Looks like people chiming in. Ramon is saying Cummins Motors should be forced to build out EV charging stations. They just had their own Dieselgate. You know, Jesse was talking about that this morning. And the fine just seems staggering to me. But what were the stats on that, guys?
I don't remember the exact amount. It's over $1 billion. So
I think it was like $1.7 billion. And it sounds eerily similar to what happened with Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Where they were building motors that were designed to circumvent the testing standards.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, so it was 1.6 billion and it was a settlement. So Cummins agreed to pay this.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's oof. On YouTube, Niels says, in reference to VW, think they will have a great success with the ID.2. It might become their best-selling vehicle in 2026 if they can keep up. The ID.2 is VW's small electric vehicle. Mm-hmm. It is, some people are trying to call it a Tesla killer. It's supposed to be in that $25,000 niche. What I've read, the little that I've read about it, is it's wildly popular.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Do we have a picture of that, guys, that we can pop up, the ID.2? I'm thinking VW, they weren't ever known for great styling, you know, so I'd like to see what this looks like, because that with the proper styling, you're right. This could hit all of the correct check fields.
Yeah, it definitely could. While we're waiting for that picture on Instagram, FNE Mobile says, does this mean that all vehicles, no matter which brand, will soon charge at Tesla superchargers?
Yes, or chargers built to the NACS standard.
I think the short answer is yes. If it's other than anything that Dodge comes out with, it's going to be NACS standard.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Rose says, I spoke to an Amazon driver who has been driving the electric van for a few months. He was delighted with the electric vehicle. We heard that from someone else as well. The UPS drivers typically have these large, dark brown, boxy vans, and you see them here in Arizona when it's 115 outside.
Mm-hmm.
Their driver's side door is completely open because of the intense heat. They have no environmental control in these vans, and these things are literally like ovens.
Yeah.
So these new electric delivery vans are actually air conditioned, and I can see why the staff would appreciate these.
Hey,
I can too.
Real quick, we can talk about that picture, and then we got to cover the Nikola article quickly. We have 4 minutes left.
Okay, all right. It doesn't look like a bad vehicle, does it?
That looks like actually pretty impressive. It reminds me a lot of the VW Golf from the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a popular vehicle here in the States as well. It sold well and did really well and did well internationally.
And Jess, it was our fault with the Nikola vehicle. You probably have that in the thumbnail.
It's in the title, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually the Rivian. It was my fault. I called
the profitability one.
The profitability. Rivian is going profitable, they claim, in 2024.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Well, it looks like we're wrapping up here the EV portion of our podcast. Stay tuned if you like. Excuse me. We will be switching over to the Tesla Roadster podcast at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, which is about 7 minutes away or so. And at that point, we'll have another hour or so of discussion about the Tesla Roadster and the latest developments having to do with that car. Thank you for joining us, as always. And feel free to join us. Any of you that want to see some of the other podcasts we've done, they're all posted out on our YouTube channel under Gruber Motors. And we tend to get a lot more traction after these podcasts than during, because the viewer count goes up quite a bit.
Yes.
Again, thank you for joining us.
Take care.